it now looks like he's a much better putter, and that his really bad putting rounds in the past were just kind of an outlier, and maybe, first time on tour nerves, things like that. And the ball striking actually is more of who he is. So yeah, I'm a much bigger fan of Ben James than I thought I would be at this point in the season.
He is far more accurate as well than I
Yeah.
think that people would like to realize. Like I think he's top 5 right now in driving accuracy, which I think can go a long way this week, especially if he continues to post these approach numbers. We continue to get lucky with the putter that maybe this is a real thing that he's turned it around. But I like what I see here. The only thing that I don't like is that a guy with this haircut, like he showed up to pitcher day with this haircut. That leads me to believe that maybe he has some bad decision making.
Pat Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog. This is the final word on the 3M Open. Keith Stewart from Read the Line is on vacation. So, normally on the DraftKings show, which we're not doing at this point, Alex Blickle is joining me. No longer. Well, actually, I'll let you say it. So, everyone should join Blickle's Discord, because why, Alex?
Because as of September for this NFL season, all of my stuff will be pretty much exclusively in my Discord. So my watch has ended, as I've been saying, on the FTN ownership stuff and the FTN DFS articles. It's all now in the Discord. And the big thing, I think the big thing to push here is the fact that with the addition of ownership projections and GPP scores and all my projections now being available in my Discord, the price is going to go up. But anyone who gets in before September, so either this week or this month, next month, the price will be that price for the entire duration of your subscription. So as long as you continue to renew, the price will never, ever go up. So this is the best time to get in and just kind of lock yourself into that price forever.
Well, I'm excited for you going out on your own. You can get the link to Alex's Discord down in the description right now. Highly recommend it. I'm in there. It's the only Discord I participate in.
Very much appreciated. Yeah, and you pointed us all to the Cam Young stuff last week, and it's unfortunate that all got voided, but very much appreciated that. And I think what people will find is like, yeah, it's my Discord, but there are a lot of really, really smart people in there, and it's just like this big giant collaboration to be the best DFS players we can be, to find the best edges we can on the pick'em games and props and all that good stuff. So it's been a ton of fun growing it, and I obviously have been really blown away by the experience, and now confident enough to go out on my own. And very much appreciate people like yourself, Pat, who have helped me kind of get there.
Reminder to everyone to smash a like. Leave your winner down in the comment section. I'm curious to know who everyone is betting on this week. I have an idea of some guys that people are betting on, but others, who knows? Some players that I thought were going to be super popular have not been, and vice versa. So maybe I'm reading it a little bit differently. Not doing the research show and me doing everything a day later kind of skews my opinion after I see the odds a little bit. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. Hopefully it's one of the helpful weeks as we go through. I did want to bring this up, though, because you still run your course fit model, and I wanted to throw up the guys that have been doing really well for me, because mine is up on the rabbit hole right now at betspertsgolf.com. Code Mayo if you want to see it. Where is it? It was in here. I thought I had 3M by Mayo. So it's in there, even though I didn't do the research show this week. And it has Stefano Mazzoli as number 1, Blickle. Does that make sense to you?
No, but when you get smaller samples, like that's what you're gonna find sometimes is a guy just had a few really good rounds, and that's therefore they pop.
Yeah, this is what happened. I didn't put any round filters on these, so I was making it pretty quickly, but it's the same ones that I used from last year, and you can go in and find everything that you want to. And like some of them I have weighted at 0% just to see what a lot of these guys are. So if you take out the very small sample size guys, Scheffler, Suber, Mitchell, Coles, Ben James, Preston Stout, Tom Hoagie, Johnny Kiefer, Paul Peterson, Tom Kim, Lucas Glover. The thing that I was trying to overemphasize, and the guy that I actually really like this week, 2 of them are not on this list, probably due to recent form, is it feels like there is a cheat code at TPC Twin Cities if you are a long and straight player. If you can harness those skills, there are very few who can do that. But even looking back at past winners, you're going to have your outliers like Lee Hodges or Michael Thompson. But between Finau, Matt Wolff, Kitayama, and Johnny Vegas, like that is their super skill. They're long and they're far more accurate than most of the distance contemporaries that they have.
It's so funny that this is the place you start for this. I just had a pretty lengthy conversation with who many would recognize as Rotomania on DraftKings, just a phenomenal DFS player. And he was reminding me that last year in round 3, I had a near takedown playing a bunch of guys exactly like that, long and straight guys, like Kitayama, for example. And it's funny because it came right after I posted my course fit model, where distance is not predictive this week. It's a lot less predictive than usual. There is a spike in accuracy, but one of the things that Rotomania and I discussed was the fact that like there is this effect here where if you are accurate, then suddenly distance does matter. So I think that that's largely, the accuracy signal that we often talk about, which is less about like how often are you hitting the exact line that you're trying to hit, and more about how good are you at missing in the correct spot, missing on the right side. And so you're not missing down the left side in the water and re-teeing. You're missing down the right side in pretty harmless rough. You still have a chance to get to the green and make a good score on the hole. Maybe even give yourself a birdie opportunity despite the miss. But the key is, with all of these like potential water hazards off the tee, you have control of that miss. And sometimes if you're long and you have control, it also, as we talk about a bunch, can widen your actual landing area and make it easier to avoid the water and some fairway bunkers. So yeah, really love the fact that you started here, because I think it's like the most interesting part of kind of figuring out this golf course.
And obviously, when you look at the leaderboard, probably because this isn't ever a super strong field, that you're going to get a mix of different types of players. But players who have played well at waterlogged courses, I mean, just look at 2 of the winners. Michael Thompson's a PGA National winner. He won here. Bay Hill with Kitayama, he won here. There is something, and listen, you've played golf at a much higher level than I have, but having been at this course and seeing a few players melt down that you wouldn't expect, that sometimes water just gets into people's heads when that's the only thing that you can see on a course.
Yeah, I think it gets back to the like high leverage shot kind of discussion that we've had in the past as well, where ordinarily, like on a regular golf shot, the difference between a good swing and an okay swing is not that much, right? Maybe it's being 20 feet from the hole instead of being 35 feet from the hole. When you get onto these golf courses with a ton of water, especially when they're also scoreable, where like, a good shot means you have a good chance at birdie, but a bad shot now means you're in the water and you're just hoping to make bogey on the hole. Like it puts some extra pressure on the guys. And obviously the added pressure on ball striking is going to help the better ball strikers. But it can also have the effect of like when somebody who's typically a ball striker can feel that, oh man, I just don't quite have it today. They lose a little bit of confidence. By the end of the day, like they're kind of beaten down mentally from having to try and feign some level of confidence on high leverage shot after high leverage shot. And that can be really difficult to do, particularly when everyone around you is making birdie after birdie.
Yeah, I think that you could get away with being one of, I don't want to say the shortest hitters, but if you are hyper accurate, that is going to be an advantage. Do you think there's something too that sometimes the player types that we see win here and have historically won here, that because it's not driver off of every hole, that there are certain places where a Kurt Kitayama can be like, hey, I'm not even going to hit driver here, maintain the same amount of distance as guys hitting their driver, yet vastly increases accuracy?
Yes, I also think it helps to be someone like Kitayama where he has multiple strengths. So if there's a hole where he just doesn't feel that comfortable with the tee shot with driver in his hand, he can afford to lay back and make it a much less stressful tee shot, because he knows even if I'm 180 yards out, even if I'm 210 yards out, I have a good chance of still, putting that long iron shot to the middle of the green, or maybe even getting it to 15 feet and giving myself a chance at birdie. Whereas some of the other players, they're going to feel a little bit more compelled to stick to whatever their strength is. So they might be more likely to take on a risky drive if they know that their iron play isn't kind of, at the level of the guys that they're competing with. I'm a little bit talking about myself here, like there are some tournaments where I feel like I need to put driver in my hand as much as possible, because if I take driver out of my hands, I'm losing my advantage. I'm losing the advantage I have over my competition. And now I'm like just volunteering to put myself behind the 8 ball against them when their approach play and their short games are better than mine.
Yeah, well, I'm playing in a tournament in about 6 weeks against a bunch of my friends. And the biggest cheat code that I have, that if I'm playing well, that I'm just simply going to punish everyone off the tee if I can not slice it completely out of bounds, which is now starting to become a problem. But if I'm rolling well that day, I'm just going to be like 60 yards closer to the hole than they are the entire time. But if I just hit my 5-wood, I would increase my accuracy, and very few of them would outdrive me anyway. Yet for whatever reason, I just can't allow myself to do that. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, it doesn't mean that you're making the wrong decision, right? Is the risk worth the advantage that you gain by being 6 yards ahead of them? Like how much better are you than them when you're even with them in the fairway? When you both have 150 yards in from the middle of the fairway, are you going to beat them as often as you will gaining that advantage off the tee so that now you can beat them from 60 yards when they're 150 yards out?
I don't know. Probably I would still probably beat them from the 150 spot.
So yeah, then in that case, I'd say pick your spots, right? When the tee shot isn't risky, bomb away, and when it is risky, and you can just say, "Well, I'll beat them from 150 instead," then do that.
Okay, maybe that's the move I'm going to start doing here. So let's jump back over to the rabbit hole again over at BetSports Golf and take a look at some of the driving numbers. I sorted by distance from edge of the fairway because I think this is interesting to look at here. TPC Twin Cities has the biggest miss fairway penalty of any course. The next closest being, do you know what it is, Blickle?
Oh, Sawgrass?
Black Desert.
That's surprising. Okay.
Well, if you miss the
I
fairway
think
at Black Desert, you're essentially out of bounds in the lava. They're really big fairways, mind you.
yeah, I was gonna say like it's interesting because it's exactly as you said. Like some courses, the miss fairway penalty is really big because it's a very difficult tee shot, and sometimes the miss fairway penalty is really big because it's an easy tee shot. So the only way you miss is if you just made an awful swing, and then of course the awful swing is more likely to penalize you more.
Yeah, the course in Cabo is like that as well with those like 70-yard fairways. But if you miss them, you're in real trouble.
Yeah, definitely. I think using the distance from the edge of the fairway makes sense, but I would also combine it with good drive percentage because good drive percentage is doing a lot of what the the strokes gained driving accuracy metric that I use is basically attempting to do.
Stefano Mazzoli, number one, is what you get when you have 6 weighted rounds and you just won a tournament. I had never heard of this guy before.
I haven't either. Yeah.
Yeah, well, now he's a PGA Tour winner, so he's going to be in our lives for a bit of time. Will Gordon, who I did bet on this week, is up there as well. Ben Coles is another one. Obviously, Scheffler is going to be up there. Feinberg pointed this out on Monday when we did the show with Cam. Should we be looking at Lucas Glover a little bit more? Like, I get that he's let us all down the past 2 tournaments, but he's been there in the past 2 tournaments.
Yeah, I think we probably should, not just because he's been there, but because the approach play has been vintage Lucas Glover. And it's not just the last 2 tournaments. Like the approach play started to trend up before the Memorial. It was pretty good at the Memorial. He just putted horribly. Then at the up in Canada, even in a missed cut, the approach play was really good. It like continued to ascend. And now it's back-to-back weeks where the putting was neutral to a little bit bad instead of just downright atrocious. And the approach play has been, as I said, like vintage Lucas Glover. If he does that with the irons again this week, there's almost like no way that he fails as long as he's continuing to be this elite with his iron play. So at the very least, we have to consider him.
So to go back to that distance from the edge of the fairway, some of the higher ranked distance players, someone named Ryder Cowan is up there in his 4 rounds. Jackson Koivin in his 10 rounds is 51st in distance, 3rd in that version of accuracy, 22nd in overall accuracy. Scheffler, obviously one of the guys that's going to be up there. William Mao and Sung Jae. Chris Kirk is another one. Chris Kirk also a winner at PGA National. Sam Stevens, Mav McNeely, Nakajima, Rasmus Niergaard Pedersen, Rico Hoey, Michael Brennan, Neil Shipley, and Shooter Sean Yelamaraju, along with Jordan L. Smith. Then you have Johnny Kiefer and Kevin Roy as other guys who round out those lists. Are those the names that you think that you'd be gravitating towards? You can see that Kitayama as well is next on that list of guys in double green here on the screen.
Yeah, there are a lot of names there that I definitely agree with. I can't guarantee that I'm not about to say someone that you've already listed, but Kevin Yu, Doug Gim, Rico Hoey, Lee Hodges. These are some others that I think about, especially those first few names because they're both a little bit long off the tee and they're accurate off the tee. But yeah, I think like the name of the game this week is just recognizing the fact that this is a ball striker's course because of the high leverage shots that we already talked about, where if you are doing what you are supposed to be doing, tee to green here, you take out big numbers and you guarantee yourself a lot of chances to score. That's just much more predictive on a golf course like this than how well you putt when you get there, because a lot of guys, some of the best putters who aren't good ball strikers, they're going to be making putts to save par or to even save bogey sometimes when most of the field has a really good chance at birdie.
And this is why I like to dial it just into driving outside of approach play. You're going to need to be good on approach, just like you're going to need to have a hot putting week if you want to win here. Like even the year that Cameron Champ won, it was a great approach and putting week. He was like, okay, with off the tee. He had a few big misses and that did hold him back outside of, I mean, do you run numbers in that way where I always wanted to take the system? We're working on it at the rabbit hole, especially for live data when you're going round by round that, hey, let's throw out the two worst and the two best shots that everyone had in a category and then kind of take an average of what they did because one terrible shot can make it look like you were horrible all around when really you weren't.
Yeah, this is a really fun kind of modeling discussion. What I would say here is when you're looking at a small sample, like it's round 3, you're trying to find the guys who are really feeling their ball striking this week. From rounds 1 and 2, I think it's a great idea to take away their 2 best and their 2 worst. Those are just outliers. Over a long sample, though, you don't want to be doing that because you want this signal for who is in control of just how bad it gets at times and who isn't. Because sometimes, like that's the defining characteristic for some players. Like I promise, I'm not just saying this to get under Jeff's skin here, but like Ludwig Oberk has had this issue all year long. His problem isn't that his A game isn't as good as the best players. It's that no matter how well he's playing, he very consistently is going to make 1 or 2 mistakes in that round out of the blue that keep him from finishing first place instead of 6th place or 3rd place instead of 12th place. He just does it over and over and over again. And like that actually has signal in a larger sample. So small samples, I love that idea. Larger samples, I actually want to know who's making those mistakes consistently.
But the reason I wanted to focus in on driver again here is that driver is a more repeatable skill than anything else that we see, that the long-term numbers on guys off the tee tend to remain far more sticky than approach play, then putting, then shipping, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
So if you can focus in and hone that in this week, and hopefully they can bring it along, like Michael Brennan, for example, like he's going to drive the ball fairly straight. He's going to be one of the longest guys in the field. Reason why he's inside the top 5 in strokes gained off the tee all year, regardless of whatever tournament he plays in. Is he going to play well on approach? Maybe. He's done it. I can't guarantee that part. Can he putt? Yeah. Probably not, but we've seen a lot of really crappy putters so far this year just spike their 1 week and they're on their way. Lucas Glover almost did. We looked at Lucas Glover's putting stats. They're like -6 every week in the last 2. Not so bad. All of a sudden, he's in contention. But if I can get that repeatable skill, that's what I want to go with. The biggest thing I'm worried about this week is Johnny Kiefer winning because I think that he's going to win next week. I think there's just too much water here for him. He has not played well at this style of course yet. Now, maybe he's getting better, but all of his best results have come at bombs away, hit it wherever you want courses.
Yeah, I'm trying to find Kiefer really quick for the splits that I have on him this week. He's been pretty good on TPC courses, which has that really nice like overlap with lots of water. I think like 4 of the top 6 courses in terms of how many balls find water on tour are TPC courses. And so I do like that sign from him. Going back real quick to your point about driving over like approach play this week, I think you can even take it a step further where think of a hole like number 2. This is the hole where there's a bunker right, there's water down the right, there's trees left. And then once you're in the fairway, you're hitting over water again to a water guarded green. The key here is that both of these shots, both the tee shot and the approach shot, I would consider high leverage shots, but notice who's more likely to hit the ball into the water on that second shot. It's not the guy who hit a perfect drive and is now, 140 yards out in the middle of the fairway. It's the guy who's a little bit in the trees or in that fairway bunker, and they're forced to take on a higher risk second shot because of their tee shot. And so even when you have high leverage approach shots, this course really kind of makes the tee shot on those holes even more important relative to those approach shots. So I couldn't agree more with you in terms of the way you're approaching this golf course.
Does the weather do anything for you this week? It looks like it's going to get over 100 both on Saturday and Sunday.
A little bit. And I also think that we should have some pretty breezy conditions. So every week, like I pick the 3 most predictive splits given the number 1 expected forecast and just given what we've seen in the past. And the 3 for me this week are windy conditions, performance on TPC courses that actually proved to be like really predictive here. And then the last one is actually really simple. It's just performance on birdie fests. And, this is something that I had long thought just as a player myself that like, hey, when I show up to a golf course where I know scoring is really difficult, I feel much, much better about my chances than when I show up to a golf course where I know I need to shoot like 4 or 5 under a day just to be anywhere near contention. And very fortunately now, like I'm able to confirm all this with data using AI and stuff like that. And this is a very, very predictive split. How you play in easy conditions is almost like an entirely different sport. It's how you play in difficult conditions. So that's another thing I'm really looking at this week.
So we don't have a ton of data just going through it here. If we go back to the past year, I have moderate and windy and easy and very easy. No shocker, Scheffler is the best in this. He doesn't play these sorts of conditions that often. Maybe if I just take off those wind filters and just go by easy and try to hone in on that. One of the filters I actually really like here is, where is it? The water danger. You can go the water danger low, average, or high for courses, which I always enjoy when we go through those. And you'll see guys that have played really well here. Not shocking because some of those stats will be included. But in Birdie Fest this year, Brennan, Cootie, Svensson, Gim, and Scheffler, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in strokes gained off the tee so far this year. And then if you go to just overall strokes gained, Scheffler, Meisner, Bezadenhout, Bauschu, and Kitayama.
Do you want to go back to that previous list for a second? Because there's something that I think is a really cool point to make.
All right. What did strokes gained again? Off the tee. There we are.
So the top three guys here, Brennan, Cootie, Svensson, these are all guys who are long off the tee. And so like in a way, they aren't great course fits. And this is kind of what I was going back and talking about with Rotomania. But one of the keys to guys who hit the ball far off the tee, they're often usually the guys who have the highest birdie rate over expectation, which is another stat that I use, which basically just says like, given the scores that they're shooting, who is getting there because they're making 6 birdies, 2 bogeys, and a double versus who's getting there by shooting 2 under with 3 birdies and 1 bogey. And, those are very, very different outcomes on DraftKings, especially. And long hitters tend to make a lot of birdies. And so it's another one where like, this is kind of the theme of the week for me. I'm a little bit torn on players because a lot of the guys who don't pop as the best course fits are the guys who are popping as the best DFS plays, the best outright bets. And I don't yet know exactly how I want to kind of approach all of that.
Just bomb and gouge. Hope to get lucky with the putter. That's a move.
It definitely might be. And those three up at the top there, Brennan, and crew there, Cootie, and that whole group. I think just they're very, very intriguing this week, especially since they've been playing some pretty decent golf.
Well, Brennan's accuracy, I think, is going to be the biggest thing. That if you can hone that back in again, where he had it to, and sometimes, listen, he's been playing courses recently where like Colonial kind of takes away, although he played well there. One of the big things that he does well, obviously at the Open Championship and in Scotland, make the cut at the Open Championship, but those just aren't courses where you needed to hit a ton of fairways. So why even try? As long as you're not in the bunkers, you're absolutely fine. So if we go to Scottsdale, where are some of the other TPC courses? We can just load them all in here.
Summerlin,
Toronto. Although, does Toronto count since it just became a TPC course?
I actually don't know this story well enough there so essentially like one of the major commonalities between these courses, which is why I think there's such a consistent signal, is the way these golf courses are designed is tournament specific. And the main kind of product of that is they want these like raised natural stadiums around, like amphitheaters, is I think the way they phrase it, around greens. And in order to do that, what do? You have to dig out a lot of dirt and create those mounds from the dirt you dug up. What does all of that dirt leave behind? Ponds. And they use those ponds and those bodies of water as the natural hazards to the golf course. And so that's why I think like it's ordinarily, I'm not a fan of just throwing a bunch of courses together, but because these courses are all designed in a very specific way that creates kind of the same challenges for players, you get that like consistent signal from one TPC course to the next.
So this is with all the TPC courses going on over the past 2 years in easy and very easy scoring conditions. We can get rid of those filters too if we just look at it again. But Scottie, Kitayama, Stevens, Bezadenhout, Homa makes an appearance. And then guys that you had liked earlier, Gim, Michael Kim all of a sudden makes a big rise. Putnam, Denny, Knapp, Lipsky, Jesper Svensson again, Hodges, who's won here, Kiefer, Hideki, Cootie, Day is another one that pops up as well. If we get rid of those and get rid of very easy, I wouldn't say the conditions here are very easy, would you? Because you can still make huge numbers.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, last year there were like multiple guys more than 20 under. I think the winner was 23. But I was actually going to like make this point. This year it does look like we're going to get more wind than we had last year. And when you add wind to all this water, then yeah, I think there's a very real chance that this year, the winning score instead of 23, it could be 14, 15, something like that. I will note that like typically wind on a golf course like this is going to move the cut line more proportionally than the winning score, because the guys around the cut line are the guys who are actually making mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes mean water, whereas the guys who are at the top of the leaderboard, it's like they're not making enough mistakes. So the fact that there's water, like it's just not going to come into play anywhere near as often for them. So I think I like what you did there, where you got rid of very easy and looked at it with just the easy filter on, and maybe add the medium filter or whatever. But I'd also say like this is a week where I kind of want to find guys who look good regardless. If the scoring is very easy, they should look good. But also if it falls to like a medium scoring week, I still want them to look pretty good in all the things that I'm looking at.
One thing I love about summer is that getting dressed gets real simple. Between golf, recording shows, running around with the family, I don't want to think too hard about what I'm wearing. I just want to grab something that's comfortable, looks good, and I know it's going to work. That's why I've been wearing Quince's 100% European linen shirts. That's right. They're light, breathable, and they've basically become my go-to whenever I'm heading out. They look good enough to wear to dinner or a round of golf, but they're comfortable enough that I can just wear them all day. You've seen them on the show. The best part is the price. Quince cuts out the middleman, works directly with ethical factories, so you're getting exceptional quality without paying for fancy labels. Everything comes in about 50 to 80% less than comparable brands. And it's not just clothing either. They've become one of my favorite places to shop for travel gear and home essentials. I wear Quince, and honestly, you should too. Make your summer wardrobe easier. Go to quince.com/mayo for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That was good for me. That's QUINCE.com/mayo for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/mayo. When I was younger, money was always something that I worried about well after the fact. I'd look at my bank account. Hopefully everything added up, and if it didn't, well, I'd figure that out eventually. As I've gotten older with a business and a family and a lot of moving parts, doesn't really work like that anymore. I need to know where everything stands before anything becomes a problem. That's what I've liked about Monarch. Instead of bouncing between bank accounts, investments, credit cards, spreadsheets, everything is in one place. It gives me a much cleaner picture of what's actually happening with my money instead of what I think may be happening with my money. It's like having a financial advisor, but in my pocket. It's great. My favorite part is that Monarch isn't just about tracking what you've already spent. It helps you plan ahead, set goals, and it even uses AI to answer questions about your finances or flag big spending trends before they get out of hand. It really takes a lot of the mental load out of managing your money. Write your own money story with Monarch. Use code PATMAYO at monarch.com to get your first year of Monarch Core half off, just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code PATMAYO. You ready for some bets?
Yes.
All right, here we go. This is going to be the fun part. I've made 7 bets to win this tournament. I'll have the first round leaders in the newsletter, which will come out on Wednesday. If I decide to go throughout, the newsletter's coming out either way. Whether or not I play in the first round market, we'll see. Unless you have any sort of insight on Live UK. Have you made any bets there?
No, I have not.
All right. So we have Jake Knapp, 45-1. He is the PME boost that I have at coolbet.com right now as well. You can get that 45-1 number under the PME exclusives tab. You can get that link directly in the show notes of this podcast, of this video, wherever you're at. You can use that link, use the code, get a bonus. You can bet on Jake Knapp. Do you know why I like Jake Knapp?
Well, I was going to say, like, I think it comes down entirely to whether or not you think that he's healthy. And so I'm guessing you're going to say based on what he's done, you think that he's healthy, and that makes him a great play.
That is exactly where I'm at, because he was going off at 30-1 in signature events pre-injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, when he first came back, I mean, I can just throw him up on the screen. That'll make this pretty easy, I think, to give you a visualization of how, if you only trust the outputs and don't really look at the inputs, that it can really throw you for a loop. And I think that's the case with Jake Knapp right now, because when he came back, he was terrible for his first 2 starts. Now, he's still been terrible in his 2 starts since, but the reasons for what he did, I'm going to reset those and look at strokes gained. So, yeah, we can just see it right here. Open, Scottish Open, Travelers, and the U.S. Open. 3 cuts and 1 cut made because there was no cut at the Travelers. But look at these numbers. So, minus, I'll just switch it to total here. Strokes gained tee to green, minus 3.5 at the U.S. Open, minus 5.7 at the Travelers. Lost off the tee, lost on approach, gained on putting. That's fine.
Mhm.
What happened when he went to fescue greens over in Scotland, where he can air the driver out and play more of his game? All of a sudden, he's gained off the tee in the past 2. Gained a bunch on approach in Scotland, despite being cut. Gained at the Open Championship. Gained around the greens. Last week, too, he just couldn't putt on those surfaces in either tournament. I'm not worried about this putting. I am happy to see the ball striking come back.
Yeah, and I think that I checked this before the Open Championship, and it seemed like his ball speed was back to his usual ball speed. So that is probably like the number one indicator of how healthy a guy is. So I'm with you here. I think if he's healthy, he's probably the best bet on the board, like by a pretty considerable margin. It's just a question of how confident you are that he's actually healthy. And I think I'm leaning towards where you're at on him, because, man, like I think you said it really well. Like, just think of where he was priced before the injury. He's priced beyond that now, and in a much weaker field on a golf course that, when he's healthy, like, he's the prototypical long but also straight guy. And so, yeah, I like this bet quite a bit.
So, yeah, he has also come T3. I believe he was T3 here last year in his one full appearance. He WD'd in his only previous appearance in the Twin Cities. So I like him a lot. And I think that his return to, I don't want to say form, because obviously he's not in form. He keeps missing cuts. But his game is a lot better than maybe is stated right now based on the results. If you're only looking at the results, you're like, this guy can't make a cut. Why would I ever bet on this guy? I feel like the underlying numbers are, and there's another guy who's more like this that I also bet on. But with the way that Tom Kim trended towards his win, that you could see it coming. Like, he was playing well. He just needed everything to hit in all 4 quadrants in 1 week. And then he did it. And then he won at 80-1. Knapp's not quite at that level yet, but he was at that level earlier on in the year. And if right now the thing that's holding him back the past 2 starts is his putter, well, I think he's number 1 in putting or number 2 in putting on the season. That I'm not sweating it, especially knowing that he was putting on fescue. And that's the only time all year he's putted poorly.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. And the other thing I'd say here is, like, he's also someone who has spiked in the past after back-to-back bad events. So, it's nice to see when a guy is like trending towards that win the way Tom Kim was. But let's also remember that there are a lot of guys, particularly guys like Knapp, who just have like very clearly explosive talent. That A game can come out of him at any point in time. It doesn't matter what he's done in the immediate recent events.
So the rest of the bets, I have Homa with 5 places, Ben James at 5 places, Michael Brennan. Those are both 50, 55-1, 5 places. Michael Brennan, 60-1, 5 places. Casey Jarvis, 80-1 with 5 places. Ben Coles, 175-1 with 3 places. It's basically a bet on Ben Coles to win in a non-Scotty market, but with super duper odds. And then Will Gordon, 300-1 with 5 places. Homa was the guy that I was talking about that has stats like Tom Kim, that everything's kind of there. Like, he's gained off the tee in 5 straight. He's gained with his putter in 5 straight. He's gained with his irons in 4 of 5 starts. He's like neutral chipping. It's just not all spiking. Not one thing is spiking at the right time when everything else is going on. But he's another guy who's finished top 5 at this event before, albeit like 5 years ago at this point. But he's really starting to play a lot better. And the only thing that really pops out in people's minds, like, yeah, he was T2 with the comeback on Sunday at the John Deere. What else has he really done? Well, he's been just churning out top 30, top 30s, top 30s, top 30s, gaining across the board. He's the sort of well-rounded player with that pedigree that we know him. He has 6 PGA Tour wins. Like, not all 50-1 guys in trending form are created equally. That was sort of the bet on Tom Kim, wasn't it? That this guy has talent. He's around where the talent level should be. He just can't put it together. I feel like Homa's kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, I was going to put Homa in that same bucket where, like, you have a guy who has a history of being someone that we thought of as a much better player than what they've shown us over the last year. And so as soon as you start to see that level of play again, it's much more likely that, like, oh, he's back to that old guy than someone who's showing this level of play for the first time, of like, you're not immediately going to buy it. You're going to say, oh, maybe he's just on a hot streak and this is going to fade. He's going to go back to being, his usual self. This might be Homa's usual self, and it just took him a while to get back to this point. So I like this one as well. And the other thing with Homa is the thing that like took him from an intriguing young player to a guy who was winning golf tournaments was that all of a sudden he went from a bad putter to a great putter. And what is the thing that has really turned around for him in the last few months? It's been that he's consistently started to make putts again. So I think with that comes a boom to his ball striking confidence, and that's exactly what we've seen lately. So I like the Homa bet and the Knapp bet a ton.
So those are the first two. Ben James for me. Oh, another note here. If you're just watching this on the screen right now, if you're watching on Spotify or Apple, welcome. Apparently people like to watch videos on these platforms. I'm not one of those people. I prefer to listen to the audio versions of the podcast, but some people, Blickle, just really like the audio. But if you're watching this on the screen, you can see where I'm over on betspertsgolf.com right now under the strokes gain metric. Ron just worked this in. Check this out. So if you can go to any tournament, any player, and they can sort by all of their stats just on this page if you want to.
Very cool. Love that.
Yeah, so if you want to see their proximity ranges from a specific tournament all listed in front, you can see that. Their ball speed metrics, if you want to see that, their spin rates, whatever it might be from a particular tournament. We don't have the ball speeds from the Open Championship, but everything else. Homa's ball speed is much higher than I would have thought it would be.
Yeah, it's really strong. I mean, he's like, this is partially why he's such a good driver. I think when you look at his distance numbers, they're not that impressive. And I think it's because he's gone to a spinnier driver trying to be straighter. And maybe it's helping him a little bit, but I also think that like maybe the thing that would take him to another level and help him find that old form is actually ditching that and just trusting that he's going to hit it straight by making good swings. And that'll give him another 10, 15 yards.
Do you have any takes on Ben James? Because I've bet him each of the past 2 weeks, and he has been in contention each of the past 2 weeks. So when he first started, he made his pro debut. He's only 23 at the Canadian Open. I believe he was first round leader there. And then he was the 36 hole leader. Then he had a terrible round 3. Like, he just played himself out of the tournament. He was kind of in it at the US Open. People forget that because Koiven was playing well and one of the other young guys was playing well. Ben James was kind of there. They had an awful Saturday and you never heard from him again. He was mixing like through one round at the Travelers in a signature event. Round 3 was just piss poor, played himself out of the tournament. So he keeps doing this where he plays 3 really good rounds and 1 really terrible round. And each of the past 2 weeks, albeit against weaker competition in these alternate events, the ISCO and Punta Cana, where I've bet on him in each of those, he's played 3 really good rounds. And then the bad round hasn't been as bad. So his results keep getting better, that we just need him to have like an average round for the bad round. And I think he has a legitimate chance of winning.
Yeah, I also like the fact that he's doing it largely from ball striking, right? Like it's not like he's gaining 3 strokes around putting and then has 1 really bad putting round. It's like everything's there. It looks like he has a pretty complete game. And actually, I would say like coming into the last few weeks, basically like since the US Open, when I looked at like what data we had on him from actual rounds and events with ShotLink data, I was like, oh my God, this guy is like Luke-less to the extreme. He bombs it off the tee, or at least he's great off the tee. He's great with his irons and just like the world's worst putter. But that's not what we've seen over the last few weeks. It now looks like he's a much better putter, and that his really bad putting rounds in the past were just kind of an outlier, and maybe, first time on tour nerves, things like that. And the ball striking actually is more of who he is. So yeah, I'm a much bigger fan of Ben James than I thought I would be at this point in the season.
He is far more accurate as well than I think that people would like to realize. Like I think he's top 5 right now in driving accuracy, which I think can go a long way this week, especially if he continues to post these approach numbers. We continue to get lucky with the putter that maybe this is a real thing, that he's turned it around. But I like what I see here. The only thing that I don't like is that a guy with this haircut, like he showed up to pitcher day with this haircut. That leads me to believe that maybe he has some bad decision making.
Yeah, I was also going to say, like, he's a pretty big guy, 6'2". So when I first saw him, like, I just assumed that he was longer off the tee than he is. But he's listed at 6'2", 160. So maybe it makes sense that he doesn't hit the ball that hard.
Yeah, listen, Justin Thomas is like 5'6", 140, and he bombs it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how accurate that is. I feel like he's got to be more than 140.
Well, I think that he's like 5. Thomas is what, 5'10", maybe
something like that.
Maybe now in his older age. When he first came on tour, he was a rake. Like
Yeah,
Morikawa can't be that heavy.
he was Akshay Bhatia skinny when he first got on tour.
Well, how tall is Akshay? Is he over 6 feet?
I don't think he's that tall, but I would say he's probably pushing 6 feet. Let's see.
I feel like that makes him look lankier than he is, that he's tall. Maybe he's not tall. Maybe he's like
Okay, listed 6'1", 130. My goodness.
See, that tracks for me.
Yeah.
Like his skinniness gets overplayed. I mean, he's a skinny guy, obviously. Probably wears like size 26 pants. But him being taller overemphasizes that versus when you see like when Matt Fitzpatrick came on the tour, he must have weighed 120 pounds.
Yeah, surprising he was good in the wind and not just blowing away.
Well, when he was better in the wind when he had his braces, by the way. It was weighing him down.
Just smiled and it cut the wind.
That's exactly what he needed to do. He needs to get the braces back if he wants to compete in majors. That's what I've learned from this year.
Maybe.
Casey Jarvis. Do you know much about Casey Jarvis?
Very little.
So another hyper accurate player. I think he may have become the first player in Open history to come inside the top 10 and not have a shot on the broadcast.
Yeah, I remember seeing, like, I was scrolling the leaderboard like late on Sunday, and I saw how high he was in the standings. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even like I couldn't have told you that he was in the top 40 at that point. Like, it was just such a quiet round. And I think that's probably like one of my biggest pet peeves on the broadcast, because you know that all of the key players are going to go through those holes later. Like, you should be showing us, hey, this is a difficult hole, but if someone's going to make a birdie, this is what it looks like. And like, show us Jarvis for that reason. You know, he played so well in the back nine. And so, yeah, I think he deserved more airtime than he got, for sure. He played awesome.
Well, I think that they thought that it wasn't going to be sustainable, so they decided not to show him. And they did get what you talked about with Cameron Young on the broadcast. They were just able to show him play all of the back nine, so you got a sense of how it was going. It would have been nice to see a yin and a yang, because Cam Young was playing so well that maybe you could have showed. I mean, Robert McIntyre was having a bad go of it. Maybe they didn't want to see him like hitting his clubs into the ground. But to see, I like the juxtaposition of, especially when you have these rabbit groups, as you're getting ready for all of the leaders to come through. It's like, here's how a guy is playing it awesome, and here's a guy who's not playing it so awesome, and here's what can happen.
Yeah, not only that, but like, you gain such an appreciation for how narrow, like the tee shot on 18 that Ryan Fox hit. That is a tiny gap when you get to that point in the day, and you gain an appreciation for it if you just saw like 8 of the last 10 guys miss the fairway in one way or another. So, yeah, obviously we could talk a lot about the changes we'd like to see to broadcast. I think that, to me, is the number one thing. Just give people more context for how difficult the shots are that they're seeing the guys who are really closing well down the stretch, how well they're pulling them off, because it'll make us appreciate it that much more.
Well, I think that's a great idea, because when they do, whenever it's like, hey, let's cut away to this guy, it's an awesome shot. So it makes it seem like that hole's playing super easy.
Yeah, and then like, you could also cut to like comically bad shots too, right? So like, that's something I feel like used to be true more than it is now. Like, they used to say, oh, here was so and so at the 11th a moment ago, and it's like a cold shank, or just ripped it right at the gallery, and you got guys ducking left and right to avoid the ball. And now, as you said, every time they cut away, it's because the guy made a 50-foot putt. It's like, it's not exciting when we know you're only showing this guy hit a lag putt because it goes in. There's no, there's just no tension when you're watching it. There's no suspense. We know what's about to happen. So very much with you there. I'd like to see someone, they cut to a guy who's putting from 50 feet and he left it 12 feet short, and the announcers just grill him for it. And, and that would be entertaining as well.
I brought this up to Michael Kim the last time that I spoke with him on the show. I'm hoping to get him for a few weeks' time just before the playoffs. Again, if anyone has any questions, dump those in the comment section if you have questions for Michael Kim. But you've experienced this as well, being out there, that what I had proposed to him was that because you don't see it, like, some of these guys hit bad shots and you just never notice. But when you're out there watching, you see them. Like, just people ducking everywhere at all times. And it's like when I was at the 3M, Martin Traynor almost killed me like 3 times when I was walking around with him. And you just don't see it on the TV, so you assume it's not happening. But these guys miss, and they miss big.
They really do. And PGA Tour Live loves to kind of make this point as to like why PGA Tour Live is fun. But even when you're watching PGA Tour Live, like, they don't show half of the bad shots. They'll show a couple of shots live, but then they'll also say like, such and such already missed the green left. Here's here's Lucas Glover with his tee shot. It's like, okay, well, I want to see the snipe shot left and all that stuff, so I think the other thing is, and I understand why they do it, because putts are final. Like if you make a putt or miss a putt, that's what your score is. Whereas if you miss the fairway, like you can still make a birdie, you can still make a bogey. So in that way, the putts are more important to some degree. But I feel like they show way too many putts and not anywhere near as many drives as they should. Because on a lot of holes, like the drive is the single most important shot. Because if you don't hit a good one, you're just scrambling for par at best. If you hit a good one, now you got a chance to really challenge for a birdie.
So Casey Jarvis won twice earlier this year on the DP World Tour, played himself into the Masters, but since then he missed the cut in the Masters. I think it was the first time he had played in the US. And his season just kind of went in the toilet. He started missing cuts everywhere in Austria and Switzerland and Italy. Then all of a sudden in Germany 3 weeks ago, he just out of nowhere just popped a T33 again. Then he played in the Scottish and got better there. And then he played better at the Open Championship and came inside the top 10. It's the only reason that he's qualified for this tournament. He played himself into it. That a hyper accurate guy with winning pedigree on the DP World Tour. He's a 63rd ranked player in the world. And you can get him. I played him with the places, but you can get him as high as 95 to 1 if you want.
Yeah, my goodness. He had 4 wins within like a 5 month period. So that was really impressive. The other thing is, like, I don't know how reliable the DP World Tour strokes gain data is, but talk about a guy who just like turned on the putting out of nowhere. It was atrocious for like a full 2 months, and then gained 1.8 at the Scottish, gained 0.6 per round at the Open Championship. So sometimes, like, we do talk a lot about how much more predictive ball striking is than putting and how guys can spike out of nowhere. But there also are guys who, like Wyndham Clark, for example, it seems very clearly that he found something with the putter and he's carried that putting success to a much, much, much better second half of the season than his first half. But then you see guys like Jarvis who really do kind of prove that whole philosophy correct, where someone can be downright awful with the putter and then just randomly spike twice. And because the ball striking's there, now those missed cuts turn into top 20 finishes.
So I like him here. I like him with the placements and the 2 bombs. Obviously, Ben Coles. I didn't quite understand the Ben Coles odds. I think that when I checked on them this afternoon, it seems like they had flipped again, that he opened at like 125 to 1. That's why I took the 3 places to get him up even higher. But then I've seen him down as low as 70 to 1 right now, because it didn't make a ton of sense. He was 110 to 1 at John Deere when he should have won and didn't, but it's still a good result for him. It was just one really bad hole did him in, or a few mistimed chips on the final few holes when the nerves started to get to him. He was the second betting favorite the next week at the ISEO, and he came 15th. It's not like he had a bad week, and then all of a sudden he opens up 125 to 1 here.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I think you're right about it just being like, it's one of those that just feels like the number is incorrect. And I think you made a good case for why that is. I will say, like, when you kind of ran through the list of your outrights, it does seem like you have the same kind of approach to at least what the numbers are telling me to do and how to treat my own outrights this week. So I kind of want to, just talk through this with you for a second. The issue that I'm having, as we talked about, the course fit model says that distance is less predictive than usual here, and distance has kind of an outsized effect on both the player's ceiling and his floor. So I wasn't expecting long hitters to be at the top of my outrights board and where all the numbers are telling me to go. But like the top outright of the week for me seems to be Gary Woodland, and I don't really know how I want to react to that. Do I just trust it, or what are your thoughts? Because obviously, like, you've been led to the same type of players here.
I bet Woodland last week. That didn't go well. So
that's okay. Yeah. I mean,
it kind of made me feel bad that he was so bad. But another guy that has played really well at waterlogged courses was having a good year outside of last week, where 8 over in the first round was just like, oh God, he was on my $250 team too. I was like, oh, I'm getting sneaky here. And I played Jarvis on teams. If I just played Jarvis on that team, I would have been fine. But no, of course, Gary ends up in that one. I think Fitz was on the team, so it didn't matter anyway. Man, is that the biggest blowout of the year from a DFS perspective? Fitz last week?
It's definitely one of them. Yeah. I mean, he got to 41%, I think, in the 4.444. So yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, that's awful. Is there, once you can, were your projections close to that?
Yes.
So knowing that, if the guy's name isn't Scottie Scheffler, is that just a no play?
It's hard to say. The thing about last week's pricing was that like every expensive guy was chalk because there were so few players over like $8,000 or even like I think there were only 23 guys who were 7,000 or more. Like it was just insane pricing. So basically every lineup, no matter how star-studded it was, could fit at minimum 2 studs. Like you could build Scottie Rory lineups very comfortably last week. So the way that I was viewing it, and maybe it was a mistake, but like I didn't think 40% fits versus 30% fits would be that different. In either case, you're not asking something different of him. You're just saying like, hey, I'm playing him because I think he's a high probability play. I'm trying to get separation elsewhere. And the other guys in my lineup are going to win me the tournament. Fitzpatrick's just going to be a piece that helped me. And so in that regard, I don't think it was a bad play, but to your point, like there's a point I always make with PJ DFS. Like this is so different than NFL DFS, where the best chalk is almost always more likely to succeed than fail. Like take this week for example, the second highest top 5 odds I have for a player in my model is 10%. And that player has a 33%, 32% chance of missing the cut. So like the odds of success versus the odds of failure are just so tilted in failure's favor for PGA that I think you're probably right that when someone's that popular, it should just be an automatic fade, unless it's Scottie, because Scottie, 43% chance of a top 5, 11% chance of a missed cut. He's more like an NFL chalk play.
Yeah, so we have the bet simulator. You can find that under the tools at BetSports Golf. Is under the tournament simulations, and we're right around the same as you. You know, Scottie, Mav, Kitayama. Knapp actually pops here. That actually probably makes him a bettable value. If he's 2.27%, what does that translate into odds? Like 44 to 1?
A little bit less than that.
A little bit less, like 40 to 1?
Yeah, I would think something like that.
So if you get him at 45, it's like one of the actual. You very rarely see a plus EV outright.
Right. And for me, like what Woodland is showing as a clearly plus EV outright. The other thing with Woodland, he has of everybody, I'm just going to use DraftKings pricing for a moment, just because I think it does a good job of like putting players in buckets. Of everybody $8,000 or more, the third best contention performance score is 0.1. Gary Woodland's is 0.44. Scottie is first at 0.54. So essentially, like what those numbers are saying is that Gary and Scottie play well above their expectation when they're in contention, and every other expensive player is basically at best like their usual self when they're in contention. Most McNeely, Kitayama, Mitchell, Knapp, Doug Kim is awful when in contention. Like these guys almost always play below their expectation when they're in contention. So getting a guy like Woodland, you just say like, hey, if he can just get himself into contention, I really like his chances. Think even last week, like going into the final round, Burns, really bad contention performance score. Siwoo Kim, really bad contention performance score. Ryan Fox, really good for contention performance score. And sure enough, he plays phenomenal golf down the stretch to actually get the win. The contention performance score has been awesome this year. And, I create a lot of stuff. They don't always work out. The contention performance score is one of those things that has very clearly paid dividends this year. So really like leaning into that. And I think because of that, I'm very, very willing to go against like the course fit style of player that I thought I was going to be betting on this week and just go to a bomber who is accurate off the tee, like Gary Woodland.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The Woodland is outside of his putting. He actually kind of makes a ton of sense, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think the story here with him is he's played awful golf in his last 2 events. And I just think the market is overreacting. Whereas like, I don't think he's any more likely to play the way he played in his last 2 events than in the one prior, which was the US Open, where he finished 7th place. So we're talking about a guy who has a win and 3 other top 10s this year amidst some of those events. Like he went 8th, 38th, 17th, missed cut, 6th, 36th in a signature event where like 36th isn't any good, and then 7th again. So he's just a very naturally volatile player. The fact that he has 2 bad rounds or 2 bad events in a row instead of just 1, like I don't think that means a whole lot. I think he's still very capable of playing well this week.
I might have to add him to the card. I think that's a pretty good sell job on Gary Woodland. Who else rates out really highly in this performance score towards the end, the high leverage scores when in contention, that it's in this field? Because I could have told you Sam Burns doesn't do well in that number.
Yeah. One guy that we mentioned earlier, who is surprising, because when you think of this guy in contention, you think of just missed putt after missed cut. But Lucas Glover's actually been pretty good in contention. I will mention a lot of that is coming from Saturdays. So I do include Saturdays just for a higher sample. Like if you're in contention on Saturday, it still counts. But let's see. Grazerman, which is a little bit of a surprise. He's been one of those victims of like, he's played well on Sundays plenty. He just hasn't played well enough because someone else played really, really well.
Well, yeah, if you have that many second place finishes, generally speaking, the guy that comes in second probably played pretty well.
Yeah, unless he started like 4 strokes ahead and then just fell to second. Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. Stephen Fisk, surprisingly, is another one who's really good because like he just doesn't get in contention a lot, but when he has, he's played well.
Yeah, 2 wins for Stephen Fisk, including 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so I think exactly right. So yeah, but to my earlier point, like this is part of why I love Woodland, because notice these names are pretty far down the board. Outside of Scottie and Woodland, before you get to some other good ones. Michael Brennan's a good one in a small sample, then Grazerman, then Fisk, Kevin Yu, Ricky Castillo. Lucas Glover. Like it's not a long list by any means this week. So when you can find a contention performance score that's pretty good near the top, like a Gary Woodland, I think it's just a much, much, much better bet than you would initially think.
What happened to Ricky Castillo? I feel like I haven't heard that name in 4 months.
Since like PGA National, I feel like.
Then he won the next week. He won at Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
He's only missed 1 cut since then, and that was at the PGA Championship, but he doesn't have any finish inside the top 40.
That's amazing. Like that's as impressive as finishing top 40 every week, because how can you consistently make a cut and then just be that bad on the weekend? That's essentially really funny.
Let's see. Yeah, just terrible. He usually just has 1 good run. You know who actually did pop out to me? And when I started thinking of, I think that PGA National, especially with how you can play PGA National now with a lot of drivers, is a pretty good comp, which led me to Eckroat for one thing. But Smotherman was another one that I was thinking about, because you kind of haven't really heard of him since the Florida swing. But check out these numbers on Smotherman recently. Look at these approach numbers.
Yeah,
he just
pretty good.
Can't putt right now,
which is like always true for him. But
let's see here. Yeah, that's a lot of red. He's less bad on bent than he is on Poe, so that's good.
I noticed him earlier because he's really popping in my win split. So I might have some Smotherman at a really nice price tag this week.
You know what he is? He's a first round leader bet.
Oh, I like that call a lot, because he can just go nuclear with the irons, and so maybe he gives himself tap in after tap in. You don't even need him to make putts, or maybe he just has 1 good putting round, and it's a much easier thing to count on to have him spike 1 day instead of all 4 days.
Yeah, as someone who's he's already paid for part of my year with a very big. He paid for our keg on our golf trip. Part of my winnings, I said I would put towards that. That if Smotherman ended up holding on to his first round lead over Nico Echeverria, then I would pay for the keg, and he did by 1 stroke. And then Nico won anyway, which was just the best possible outcome happened that week. Wish every week was that week. That'd be great.
How many kegs did you just win in the best ball streets?
Oh my God, I don't even know how much kegs are, because you have to remember that. So I ended up winning the $27,500, which turned into $41,400 Canadian, tax free too. So it's a lot of kegs.
Yeah, that'll work for sure. By the way, Pat, we can get Woodland all the way up to 140 to 1 on our favorite each way.
On the 3, you know what? I will do that with you. You have sold me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I like the 3 this week for some guys. For other guys, I don't. I mean, I'm just, there's no rhyme or reason behind it. Just that's how I like to do it sometimes. That, like with Coles, I'm basically what I'm saying is I'm betting Coles to win. Those 3 places give me enough juice that if he does come second, then like whatever. I like it with Woodland this week too, with the way that you described it. With Jarvis, with Homa, like I can see them flirting with contention that, my week is paid for if Max Homa comes 4th, and everything else is kind of a free roll after that. But with these guys, I don't know why I like them more that way. But, I'm an idiot like that.
Well, I think with Woodland, like you said it really well there. If part of the thesis is that he's really good in contention, what do you need the 4th, 5th, and 6th place finishes for? Like if he's playing well in contention, he's going to finish 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. Obviously, we'd hope for it to be 1st, but like this also gives us a really, really nice payout if like he does play really well in contention, but Scottie shoots 8 under on the final day, and like there's just no catching him. So yeah, I think this number is just spectacular for him. So that was a big bet for me that I just placed.
Are you someone who spends a lot of time at a desk, sitting down, kind of like me when I'm recording shows or writing or doing whatever? Eventually you realize your old office chair just not cutting it anymore. Mine was fine until it wasn't. So I started looking around and I found exactly what I wanted. Where? On WAYFAIR. The biggest surprise was the price. I figured that a chair that actually looked good and was comfortable enough to sit in for hours was going to be super expensive, but it wasn't. It showed up quickly. The person I paid to set it up said it was super easy to set up, so that's handy. And now I just don't spend any last hours of every show sitting around feeling like I'm going to try to get more comfortable because I don't need to. If you've been putting off upgrading your home office because you think it's going to cost way too much money or you don't know where to start, just head to WAYFAIR. I ordered from WAYFAIR and honestly, you should too. Ready to upgrade your home for way less? Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home and get your space ready for less. That's WAYFAIR.com. WAYFAIR. Every style, every home. You got a business idea bouncing around your head and maybe it's been there for months or years or whatever. Just stop waiting for the perfect time because it doesn't exist. I know because when I started MMN, I spent way too much time wondering if I was actually ready. Looking back, someone should have just told me to start 3 years before when I wanted to do it, so the channel would be bigger at this point. But I didn't, so here we are. Wish I had done that then. If I was launching a storefront today, Shopify is where I begin. You don't need to be a web designer or a tech expert. It handles the storefront, the checkout, and all the behind-the-scenes stuff so you can actually spend time building your business instead of troubleshooting your business, which I can attest to is no fun and takes up a ton of time. And that's the biggest advantage. When your checkout is simple and returning customers can use ShopPay to get through in just a tap, you're giving people every reason to actually complete their purchase. With Shopify handling the heavy lifting, you get to focus on growing instead of fixing. With Shopify, nothing stands between your idea and a real business. So go make it one. Now, okay? Listen to me. Go do it now. If you're ready to stop putting off your business and start hearing, then you're ready for Shopify. Start your free trial at shopify.com/ArsenalVision today. You heard that right? Start your free trial at shopify.com/ArsenalVision. That's shopify.com/ArsenalVision. There are different types of things where you can out-strategize the course. One on this hole, on number 18. Number 18 is I love 18 here. And the hospitality tent at 18 is fantastic. But because that hospitality tent surrounds the green, Alex, if it was me, I would just fire at that hospitality tent.
Yeah, why not? You really should. And I feel like you might also be able to get like the bank shot onto the green from it too.
Maybe. I mean, remember when Rahm did that at Riviera?
Yes. Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I think they moved it back the next year so that no one would do that.
Well, I mean, if it's there, why not fire at it?
100%. Yeah. Cause like there's no downside to it whatsoever. And you might get really, really lucky. Now, obviously, like if you're in the middle of the fairway and you have a good shot at the green, there's no need to do it. But like if you're coming out of the rough and you don't know how to judge the lie and you feel like, oh, if it's spinny, I'm going to come up way short and short is a terrible miss here. By all means, just blast it at the bleachers. Like there's no downside to it whatsoever.
And if you somehow blast it too well and hit it over the bleachers, then you just get a drop on the other side. No big deal.
No big deal at all. You don't even have to find the ball, apparently.
Well, finding the ball would actually be bad. Did you hear them say that they found the ball after he had hit the shot?
Really? I did not hear that.
They said that on the broadcast, and they never mentioned it again.
Oh God, they probably said it, and someone's like, "Don't you dare say that again, because then we'll get roasted for it." But yeah, that was not a good look, to say the least.
Well, this happens to Scheffler a lot because it happened to him at LA Country Club. I think it was LA Country Club. It was one of the U.S. Opens where he hit it left, and obviously he doesn't hit it left all that often. I mean, if he has a case of the misses to the left, that's all he hits.
I was going to say that's his miss,
but he rarely misses that way. It's usually that if. Like this week, it was a lot of the pull cut, but he just overcut it and it would end up going. But he was in the left in the woods, but there was this cable from a camera that was also in the woods. So he got free relief to the fairway with a path to the hole all of a sudden. It's like something needs to be done about this. It is wildly unfair.
We've talked about it. He's the best player in the world, and he has the Spieth magic beans, and then apparently includes the rulings that the rules officials give him, for sure.
I just don't understand that if you hit it into a bush, it's unplayable.
Yeah.
Sorry. or play it from the bush.
This is my biggest complaint about TIO is like TIO has to exist. It really does, because there are so many instances where a player would otherwise be in good shape, and because the bleachers are there, or because sometimes it's not even bleachers. Like obviously, when we think about TIO relief, we think about the big grandstands around the greens, but sometimes it's like the food stand in between two par fours, and like if it's not there, everyone on course is going to have to walk 3 miles every time they get thirsty or something like that. And obviously you can't have it. So TIO has to exist in some way, shape, or form. But I feel like they have to come up with a way to say, if you would have been screwed anyway, you need to still be screwed. You can't, like, just like in any drop, there's always the condition of you drop no closer to the hole. They've got to find a way with the TIO relief to make it no closer to the hole, and also you can't have like just a much better outlook. I don't know what the solution is, because like you're playing with very tricky ground there. You're asking rules officials who might be like 85 years old to make very rational decisions in the moment under pressure, with the with caddies and players just staring daggers at them, pressuring them to make good decisions that are favorable to them. So like I don't know what the implementation for anything looks like, but I very, very, very much hope that the USGA, the RNA, the PGA Tour, the PGA of America are kind of all joining heads to say, we've got a problem. What can we do to fix it, or at least improve it a little bit?
For one and done this week, where do you think that you would go?
I'm
just going to use Knapp.
I'm so far.
I have Knapp. I'll use Knapp.
Yeah, I think as has been the rule for like all of the non-signature events, the number one thing that you do that's like really important is you don't use somebody that you're going to wish that you had for a signature event moving forward, which at this point is basically just the playoffs. So don't use someone that you're going to want in the playoffs. Outside of Scottie, I don't know if anyone in the field actually fits that. So you can pretty much just use whoever you want this week, I think.
I think so. Like, would you have a favorite? Like, if you had everyone available who wasn't Scottie, who would you pick?
Koivin.
Yeah, that's who I picked on the Monday show. I mean, his name hasn't come up yet because his odds got beaten to the ground. When it came down to Koivin versus Knapp, that was a decision that I made, and I pulled the trigger on Knapp. Then, like, they must have saw that I bet it. They're like, well, if Pat's going to be talking about Knapp, let's make it an even better number. So, like, more people will bet on Knapp and not win, and we'll crush Koivin's odds because he's probably the play here. But that was like a real coin toss. Now Knapp's like 70% higher in the market, which feels kind of nice.
Very nice. I feel like Koivin he's probably still a decent bet, but to some degree, he's already priced in the market the way that like we all are. Essentially, he's priced as the guy that we all hope he's going to be immediately, and not necessarily the guy that he is going to be immediately. It's similar in a way to Oberg again, because it's the same thing. Like week after week, Oberg is not being priced based on how often he has won golf tournaments. He's being priced based on how often we think he can win golf tournaments in the future, but we're not betting in any week other than the one that we're in currently. And so I think he's been overpriced. With Koivin, I don't think it's making him overpriced. I think it just makes him a pretty fair price.
DraftKings. Let's talk about this, because we're not doing the DraftKings show rest of the year. So, sorry, it's football time. It's the price we have to pay, and people aren't like super. It's not fun. DraftKings in a 50-man tournament for the BMW Championship.
Yeah, seriously, or the Tour Championship. Although last year in the Tour Championship, I won a ticket into the Week 1 NFL Mega, where I got 7th for $50,000. So don't overlook DFS in these last PGA weeks. You can make your NFL season that much better. But honestly, Pat, like, yeah, I'm bummed to not be talking DraftKings each week for the rest of the year with you. But if it means more shows for NFL, or even me talking to you on a show about NFL, I'm all for that for sure.
Well, I'm trying to figure out a Monday show, and right now, like I feel like what I want to do is because Cust and I do like the instant recap, and that's a lot of fun. I don't think it's like the most in-depth content. A lot of fun content, obviously. But for Mondays, what I'm thinking about doing, because I've tried a whole bunch of different Monday shows, that maybe a more in-depth recap, but have like a personality guy and a data guy along with me. But I think that there's a flow to that could really work.
That sounds awesome. I can't wait for that.
Like hot takes and stable takes or something.
I love that. Yeah.
Or Monday worst take instead of first take.
That's great. Yeah, and we can have the goober make the worst take, and then you and I can just eviscerate the take.
I mean, I might be the goober in this situation. I'm not going to lie to you.
I'm going to take my own terms as the goober as the goober take. So yeah, we'll all be in a rotation, but maybe we'll make sure that proportionally we're all making the right amount of goober takes and doing the right amount of eviscerating.
Have you run the projections for ownership yet?
No, but I have a pretty good sense about certain areas, I would say.
All right, so tell me about Scheffler at 14.9. When you pick him, you have 7,000 left for the rest of the guys, and this is with 144 players in the field.
This is the first thing I have conviction on. I think he's going to be very low. The last time we saw a price like this for Scottie and a really weak like 6K, 7K range was at the Scottish, where he was literally 5%. I don't know if it's going to be that low, but it very much could. I would guess something like 10 to 12 for Scottie.
See, I would normally agree with you, but there were actual options. Like when you see the rest of the pricing here with McNeely, Kitayama, Matsuyama, Mitchell, Knapp, Tom Kim, Koiven, Cootie, and Doug Gim as the $9,000 range. At the Scottish, that was like Tommy Fleetwood, Robert McIntyre, like actual guys who you would feel good about. No one feels good about Pearson Cootie here.
That's true, but there's the difference, I think, is that in the Scottish Open, and this is it's actually like a similar point with just a different conclusion. You didn't have like the second to eighth best player, or in this field, I should say, you don't have the second to eighth best player who's taking a ton of win equity from the rest of the 8K range and the upper sevens. And so those guys all end up being better plays relative to everybody around them than what we had at the Genesis. So yeah, the guys directly below Scottie, not as good. The guys below that are, as a result, even better. And so I think we'll see a lot of like really balanced lineups. I don't know exactly who people are going to land on in that regard, but like I think Koiven at 9,200 is a really good chance of being the most popular play of the week.
Well, I can show you the lineup that I made to kick things off for the week. Just like my first look lineup was Koiven, Knapp, Homa, James, Brennan, and Will Gordon. And I think I'll be different enough because I used a $6,600 guy.
Yeah, you definitely will. So like when you had listed three names, I was like, yeah, this sounds like the chalk build. And then you definitely differentiated from there. I think the chalkier build will be just three more like mid 7K guys, essentially in those final three spots.
So people seem to like, who do people like here from the lower sevens? Kevin, you think?
Yeah, I think you might be on a different tab. I'm seeing one with Scheffler still.
Oh, sorry. There we go. So Knapp, Koiven, Homa. It doesn't even seem to be Knapp. He seems to be following. So who's we'll say Koiven's popular at the top. Do you think it'll be McNeely or Kitayama?
I think Kitayama, defending champ, playing good golf.
And I think that Suber will be higher owned than Homa. So we'll throw Suber in. Do you think that Kevin Yu is kicking himself after seeing that leaderboard at the Open?
Yeah, I saw your tweet about this. Probably. I don't know. I don't know what that carryover would have been, but it's certainly hard to ignore the fact that it was like literally the exact same leaderboard.
Yeah, so from TPC Toronto 2 years ago, Ryan Fox beat Sam Burns in a playoff while Cam Young finished a shot out of the playoff. And Kevin Yu.
Yeah, like it's insane. And it's worth remembering, of course, that if you added 50 of the other best players in the world to that PGA Tour Canada, or not to that Canadian Open 2 years ago, like the leaderboard's probably different, but it's still true that those leaderboards were remarkably similar with three of the top four names. So definitely Kevin Yu was looking at that like, wait a minute, this looks pretty familiar. Maybe I could have done something this week.
Well, even beyond those three, like Jackson Suber and Bud Colley were very much in the mix most of the week at the Open too, who just the only reason that they got into the Open was being good at TPC Toronto.
Fair point. So yeah, definitely something to note.
Let's see here. All right. Forgot Finau, former champs in the field. $8,200. Good for him. And he's in that new show, Hawk, on Netflix.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that's why his game is bad. Or maybe his game's been so bad that he was like, I need to find a way to make some money elsewhere. Maybe I'll try my hand at acting.
Have you watched it?
I have not.
I went in with, I want to say like it was going to be a 2 out of 10 show. And it is very surprisingly a 6 out of 10 show.
Okay, fair enough.
Not
Maybe I'll
something
check
that I
it out.
would ever watch again, but I'm very much enjoying it.
Okay, I'll give it a try now.
So here's the lineup I have: Kitayama, Koiven, Suber, Kevin Yu, Baoshu, and Ben Coles. It's some version of this I think is going to be the chalk.
Yeah, something like this, and then we'll see variations where, like, okay, instead of Kitayama, they'll go Max Homa, and now one of Boshu or Coles can be, another AK guy or something like that. So lots of iterations of this type of thing, but I think people are going to feel much, much better about a lineup like this, where they feel pretty good about all 6 guys in their lineup, than one that starts with Scottie. Then they get 2, maybe 3 more guys that they actually like, and then 2 guys that they're like, oh God, this is ugly, but I just kind of have to do it.
I actually think it's a week where you can go 100% Scheffler if you want to. I think there are enough guys in this range that obviously some of them are going to be absolutely terrible, but I don't see that big of a difference between some of these mid 6K guys and the mid 7K guys. Like I love Michael Brennan. I like Max Grazerman. Jason Day's fine. William Mao is good and everything like that. But I don't know, like Andrew Putnam's been good. Smotherman's been good. Pontus Nyholm has been pretty good. Phillips has been pretty good. Kevin Roy's been pretty good. You can make this work pretty easily.
Well, so this is part of the difference between, single entry, 3 entry, and building as many lineups as you want, right? Because if you have one lineup and it's one Scottie lineup, you've got 2 or 3 really, really like low probability bets in that lineup that you need to hit in order for the rest of the lineup to actually be worthwhile. If you have 20 Scottie lineups, you can do this in such a way where, like, you never have any of those ugly 6K plays in more than 3 of your 20. And so now plenty of them are going to fail. But if you just have one of those 20 lineups with the right combination of goobers down there, you're going to be in a really good position. And so I think, to your point, like if you're doing 20 max or beyond, 100% Scottie, very, very much in play. If you're doing single entry or 3 entry, I think you're probably better off without him.
Baoshu, Glover, Coles. Does that work? Let's see. Yeah, here's the lineup right here. Here's the Scottie lineup, probably the chalk Scottie lineup. But I don't know how many people are going to use Will Gordon. I just like Will Gordon this week. You can change him to Aaron Wise if you really want to. Scheffler with Gordon. So Scheffler with the 66 guy, then 4 low 7s. Baoshu, Glover, Smotherman, and Coles.
I would even go so far as to say, like, I don't think there is a chalk Scottie lineup this week because, for one thing, I think Scottie will be really low. But then for another, it's like everyone that you're using in a Scottie lineup is probably going to be low owned. So you really don't have to worry about, the conditional ownership stuff at all in Scottie lineups. And you can just kind of do whatever you want down there.
Yeah, Coles can be Griot if you really want to. What do you make of Preston Stout?
He was one where, like, I ran the projections this morning, saw his projection, was like, oh, I need to go spend more time on that one because there's no way it's right. I think he's a lot better than what my initial projections are showing. I think he's a really, really good player. I don't think he's anywhere near Koiven's level, but I think if it weren't for Koiven, we'd be talking about Stout as like one of the more exciting guys to make this jump over the last few years.
Well, this might be because this is what happened. Because I bet the year that Matt Wolff won at the 3M, I bet Morikawa because Morikawa was the guy. They had all just turned pro. And Bryson was in that tournament as well. He's the guy who lost coming down the stretch to Wolff, and Wolff made the eagle on 18. Morikawa was third that week. That Morikawa, like Hovland was kind of the guy that everyone liked. But as soon as they turned pro, like Morikawa, he played really well in Canada when he made his debut. He lost to Hovland, played really well at Pebble Beach at the US Open right after that. But like week after week, you just like look at the just basically box score watch. Look at this, like these approach numbers are like out of this world good. Like this guy might actually be awesome. And then everyone liked Matthew Wolff because he hit the ball a mile, but he was the third of those guys. So when it came to tournament week, Bryson, I think, was the betting favorite that week. Morikawa was like 50. Wolff was like 100-1. And there wasn't that much separating Wolff, Morikawa, and Hovland at that time. People just agreed that Hovland was going to be the best one. So his odds got shitty, where the other two were actually able to come in. And what we're seeing right now in some of these situations, that Koiven is that guy. Ben James kind of fills this Morikawa role, whereas Preston Stout's kind of in the Matt Wolff role.
Yeah, I think you could even flip Stout and Ben James if you wanted. So very much agree. And it reminds me, did you see... I can't remember who tweeted this out, but as of next year's Masters, there will not be a single major champion under 30 years old.
That's crazy because it felt like the only people winning majors were like mid-20s guys, and they did, and now they're all 30.
Yeah, and I think so that was kind of my immediate reaction was like, number one, yeah, I am surprised that none of the young guys have broken through, but also I think it speaks a little bit less to those young guys who have had chances or are good enough to have won and just haven't, and speaks a little bit more to the fact that there's just so much talent, and there was so much talent that came onto the tour like 10 years ago that all of the guys who are now 30 are just hogging all the wins because they're just that good and kind of earned all of those wins. And it's just hard for the young guys to kind of actually find an opportunity where none of the tremendous golfers play well enough to win a major.
Well, it made sense too. I think you hit on the key point there of why this is the case. Because, and let's just go back to that crop of year of Hovland, Wolf, and Morikawa. I believe that was 2018. That was the Pebble Beach US Open year when Woodland won, right?
I think so.
So of that year, you're at the tail end of Spieth, and he's like not that good anymore. Scottie hasn't become Scottie yet. Rory's not winning majors. It actually had, I would say the talent wasn't necessarily down, but all of the best players weren't playing anywhere near their peak. And you had this gap where that could be backfilled by the next wave of guys. And that next wave of guys took about 1.5 to 2 years to really get going. And then Morikawa wins 2 in 1 year. And then Scottie starts winning majors as a mid-20s guy. And they have just been kind of the dominant force for the past 5 years. And they haven't really petered off a little bit. Maybe we're seeing that now with Scheffler, that he hit his peak and now he's back on his way down. Not meaning he's going to be uncompetitive in this stuff, but when you go and take a look at major champ, like what did Harrington win? Like 3 in the course of 18 months, then never won one again. Like he felt like the best player of all time for 18 months. And then he was good the rest of his career. Not great, but good.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing that people sometimes forget is like with time, players are going to get better, but it doesn't mean they're ever going to have like a day of 4 consecutive rounds or a week of 4 consecutive rounds that were as good as what they did when they were 20 years old or something like that. Right. And so, even if you become a better player, it doesn't mean you're going to get more chances to actually win the thing.
All right. Well, good luck with your Discord. We'll talk about football, and we'll be back on. We'll do some stuff here maybe if anyone wants to see an NFL data-driven type show, maybe that's something that we can do together in the preseason. I'm filming a bunch of. I wouldn't say I'm on vacation, Blickle, but I'm working like 2 days a week. Well, I'm working 3 days a week. I'm filming golf on the days I need to film golf, and then spending the other day filming a bunch of football that I can release on. Like I have a wedding. I had a wedding last weekend. Fun during the middle of the Open Championship. I have a wedding to travel away for this weekend. So we're filming a little bit ahead on football right now.
Awesome. Yeah. I love talking football. Like we can talk, week 1 stock targets, like whatever you want to do to, teams to watch out for throughout the season, teams to attack, defenses to attack, anything like that. It's always a fun conversation. And maybe we also talk some like 5 minutes of PGA in one of those shows. So yeah, lots of fun ideas.
So Keith will be back next week for the final word. The Me and Jeff show ain't going nowhere. Keith and I in the final word ain't going nowhere. That'll be Mondays and Wednesdays for golf the rest of the golf season. Plus, we'll splice in some other shows. We'll do our awards. Michael Kim will be on. Alex and Tambo will probably be back at some point as well. You guys are still doing Leverage Lane, right?
Yes, we are. No Leverage Lane this week because Tambo's in Minnesota for the Fantasy Golf World Championships. So best of luck to Tambo, of course, and then we'll be back next week in our usual Wednesday slot. You
can check that out on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel. How embarrassing would it be for Tambo if he made less money than I did in live finals this year?
He would not be very happy, that's for sure.
He pumped more money into it than I did, I'll tell you that much.
That's also very true. Yeah. I will be making less in World Championships this year in live finals than either of you. So at the very least, he's not last place.
Well, code Mayo at Underdog if you want to get in the game at Underdog. And good luck to Tambo this week in Minnesota of everyone who's there. We're rooting for you. I hope that Tambo ends up winning. That would be amazing. Become a millionaire overnight. It's always nice to see. All right. Thank you all for watching. Leave your winner in the comments. If you've got any questions for Michael Kim or for the show that we're recording tomorrow, released next Monday with me, Jeff and Cust, about the NFL. If you want to leave some of those down there as well, go do that. Smash a like, sub to the channel, leave a rating and review as always. Even tell some friends, okay? Let's hit a winner this week. We'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!